Plastic Hearts by Miley Cyrus, the newest album. We've talked about Miley a little bit since the podcast started. A couple of years back, we got uh, what was that EP collection? She is coming.
That was last year,
That was just last year.
last spring. Yeah.
It feels like 2 or 3 years ago at this point, but that's 2020 for you, I guess.
What was supposed to be like a series of EPs leading to this She is Miley Cyrus album that was ultimately scrapped. And there might be some pieces of that on Plastic Hearts, but it feels like this is more or less something new.
Yeah, and I think we liked some of what was off that album.
Yeah.
She had songs like "Dream," "Mother's Daughter," some good stuff on there, and it felt like Miley was maybe moving in the right direction music wise. Her career's had a lot of ups and downs. I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, genre wise, she's kind of been all over the place, right? Like since leaving Hannah Montana behind like 9 years ago, you have like Bangers, which was I think her most commercially viable, her most popular, and which is largely like big pop focus. But then she kind of like course corrected a few years back with that Younger Now like country record that didn't really land, and then you get that She Is Coming EP songs you mentioned. I also really liked Unholy on that. I think that was more or less lending itself to what was good about Bangers. And then even later on last year, a solo single, Slide Away, which I thought was excellent, made my top 10. Her VMA's performance of that live is tremendous, honestly, better than the recording, in my opinion. And I mean, like, it's been abundantly clear for a while that Miley Cyrus is a very talented vocalist and performer. And it's just a question of what kind of music she's going to be making. And Plastic Hearts is definitely new stuff once again because it's more throwback, but unlike it's certainly 1980s once again, like a lot of pop, but it's not actually really 80s disco so much as it's like 80s new wave. It's a little different than the usual 80s throwbacks we've experienced of late in pop music.
Dave, I had a funny experience this morning where I was listening to a country holiday song. Just happened to come on a playlist I was listening to, and I was like, "Oh, this guy has the most country voice ever!" Right? Like his voice, you know what I'm talking about. You can almost hear it
Yeah,
as I'm
sure.
talking about it,
Luke
and
Combs.
yeah, and it's kind of the same thing for females when they sing countries. I feel like there's a lot of female vocalists who have a similar style with country, and Miley never really quite fit that, but that was the mold she was in as Billy Ray Cyrus's daughter. This country music legend, and she came up as Hannah Montana, who was like country rock and
Yeah.
but always had like that pop twist to it. And then she comes out and she has a couple records and she's going more and more pop, and that kind of culminates with Bangers, right? And at that point, you're like, okay, Miley's a pop star. As you just kind of detailed, there's some twists and turns, but she always had the voice, I think, that fit more for that rock sound. And I think this album is where she really starts to find the sonic style that really fits with those vocals. And what it's always kind of been has been that like 80s rock, female rock.
Yeah.
I guess always kind of just like hiding in plain sight for her, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, you think to recent single off Plastic Hearts, Midnight Sky, which
Mhm.
has been rapturously received, notably interpolates Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks. You get a
Mhm.
kind of remix, mashup of sorts between the two songs as well on this album. You hear that, and then you look on this album and you see that Joan Jett is also featured.
Mhm.
You're like, all right, you can definitely tell what Miley is into right now.
Yeah.
And because she has like she's a talented vocalist, a strong vocalist, but she has a certain like rasp to her voice.
Mhm.
Like there's like just an edge, a natural edge to the way she
Yeah.
sings that I think it lends itself genuinely to making
Yeah.
this kind of music, and that definitely comes across on Plastic Hearts.
Yeah, I mean, even you talked about the mashup remix of Midnight Sky with Edge of 17, and it's just so clear that she's made in almost the same exact mold as Stevie. I think Stevie's voice was a little more smooth than Miley's, but Miley, like you talked about, that rasp is so unique and really lends itself to uh, creating this like bite to these songs, and it really is in the style of someone like Joan Jett, or
Mhm.
she covers "Heart of Glass" by Blondie on this, which I don't know. Blondie's a little more glitzy and glam, but then she covers the Cranberries "Zombie," and that might be my favorite song on the record. She just absolutely destroys it, and it's
Yeah.
like this is always, it feels like, who Miley was meant to be, and probably not who she's always going to stay as, but seems like this is the comfort zone for her where she just absolutely slays it.
Yeah, definitely. She's done rock covers in the past too, and they've always been well received. And I think that's really just because she's really talented
Mhm.
performer. I'd like to see her do a Tiny Desk, to be honest, for
Yeah.
NPR. I think she could do really great there. Um, but I mean, I think Midnight Sky is going to remain probably the most popular song on this, which is a big highlight for a lot of people. Um, but like, I think like the first track, what WTF do I know? What the fuck do I know? That song, like the rasp. If you wanted to hear that Miley rasp, that's it right there. And like you hear this in like the 80s, 80s rock of it all. That's kind of it. And then right after the Dua song, you get "Give Me What I Want." That's another good example of that. How'd you feel about Billy Idol's feature on this? Again, makes sense when you think about the Stevie and Joan Jett being on the mind of late. But what do you think about Billy Idol? Like, I definitely have not heard him recently.
Yeah, I don't think many people have, and it was fine. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself the biggest Billy Idol fan. I think he was a bit before my
He's got
time,
those hits I like. That's all I really
right?
know.
I mean, anytime I hear him sing, I just go right back to White Wedding. You know, it's like just give it to me. But I don't know. I think the songs I jive with most on here probably in the first half, but I think Miley really played to her strengths on this album because as she was kind of falling into this 80s rock genre zone on the first half, I think she really goes to a more like stripped back acoustic side in the second half with a couple of really solid songs. I mean, High, it sounds very much in the same ilk of The Climb, which I think is also a lane that Miley does really well. These like soft rock ballads. And you get kind of a similar thing on Golden G String, which is a little bit more glitzy and glam. It kind of reminds me of High Horse a little bit by Casey Musgraves in terms
Mm,
of style. But really, I think Miley was like, I can do rock on this, like rock pop, or I can go to like ballad rock on this, and then
yeah.
and she kills it. And I just love that. It feels like through all the shit she's been through over the last year in her personal life, and just kind of all the tabloid,
Mm.
fodder she's received, it seems
Lost her
like she's kind
house
of
to the
yeah,
fires last year.
yeah. It seems like she's really found herself within a year of tumult. So it's really nice to see her elevating in this way. Um, what other tracks stood out to you? Any that you liked in particular? How did you feel about the Dua song?
Yeah, so that one's funny to me because that's probably the only example where it's more lean towards the 80s disco stuff.
Mm,
And to me, it almost feels a little bit out of place in the context of the album. And that's probably because like it's good. I like listening to it, but it doesn't come close to any like the really good stuff on Dua's album. So it just kind of feels a little lesser to me. Um,
yeah.
and it feels a little commercial, like it's on the album because it'll be successful because it's featuring Dua Lipa. It doesn't really make much sense for this the rest of the sound, but that's
Mhm.
fine. I still like the song.
Yeah, I thought it was a good song, but probably not one of my favorites. You mentioned Midnight Sky. I think Plastic Hearts and also What the Fuck Do I Know, the first track, are probably
Yeah.
my top three originals. And then, like I said, Zombie is maybe my favorite song on here. Just she absolutely slays it. Any last thoughts on Miley as we start to wrap up here?
I hope this does well for her, because when she course corrected to the country again with Younger Now, that did not do that well. And we know Miley as a celebrity is sound. I just hope she can become a successful commercial artist because this is funny enough. This is album 7 for Miley Cyrus. She's 28. It's she's been very active.